Good morning. Thank you so much for coming to our How to Do Business with Vistra. My name is Joanne Wong. I'm Director of Corporate Services at the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council. And today we have Mary Gano from Vistra, who will provide an overview of the procurement process and supplier diversity program at Vistra. So just a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded. Mary's presentation will be available at the close of the event. And instead of using Q&A and the chat function for questions, we are going to ask that all participants at the conclusion of the presentation just raise their hand. We will take you off mute and you can ask your question directly. And with that, I will turn it over to Mary.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all so much for being here and having me be able to present and tell you how to do business with Vistra. I've been in supply chain diversity for a little bit over 3 years, so about 3.5 years, but I've been at Vistra and all the other companies prior to it being named Vistra for almost 17 years. I've had the opportunity to work and support corporate, also support our generation business as well as our retail business. And we'll kind of talk about that whole integrated company as we go on to the next slide. So when I talk about an integrated energy company, I'm speaking exactly like I said just a minute ago. We generate electricity and then we also sell it. So a little bit of history, recent history actually, about Vistra is up until April 2018, we were only operating in the state of Texas, and we had probably about maybe 15 power plants. Many of those power plants were coal-fired power plants, and we had lignite coal mines. So that's surface mining, not the cavernous mining, but that's surface mining. In April of 2018, we closed a deal with a company called Dynegy. And at that time, we went from just being in Texas to having generation in 12 states. And then that wasn't enough for Vistra. We were just on this path moving forward. So in 2019, what we decided to do is, hey, let's buy a couple of retail brands. And so we closed on a deal with a company called Creus in, I believe it was July of 2019, and then Ambit, which that deal closed in around November, December of 2019. So that took us from having brands only in the state of Texas with 3 brands to having retail brands in 19 states plus the District of Columbia. So on this slide here, you can see where we have our power plants as well as some of our sales offices located. Now, one thing that we've been doing, like so many companies that have a high investment in coal-fired power plants, is we're decommissioning several of those coal-fired power plants and going over to battery storage as well as solar. And so if you've had an opportunity to do any research or anything, and if you haven't, I ask that you do, or go to our website, and you will see that we have a battery storage facility, which is the largest utility grade battery storage located in Moss Landing, California. We started out with 300 megawatts that went online in December of 2020. And then we added an additional 100 megawatts that went online in, I believe, August of 2021. And then we're slated to have some additional megawatts to go on in 2022. We're also doing quite a bit of things in Chicago. We had several power plants, again, that were coal-fired, decommissioned those power plants. And there was some legislation that Vistra helped push through called the Coal to Solar Act. And in that legislation, which passed in mid-September of 2021, it is allowing us to actually use 6 of those facilities as solar and battery storage, and then an additional 3 in Illinois as battery storage. And we're doing things in Texas as well as it relates to solar and battery storage also. So changing the footprint of being a heavily coal-fired power plant over to a lot of renewables. And that's something that's very, very exciting. And I would say that that is taking up the majority of my time in 2022, last year as well. And then I'm sure it's gonna go and take up a lot of my time from a supplier diversity standpoint in 2023 and 2024 also. So I kind of talked about, we have the retail offices. We do have about 5,400 employees. We generate, as you can see from this slide, about 39,000 megawatts of power, and that is enough to power 20 million homes. Over here to my left could be your right. It shows the list of some of our brands. Like I told you, we have several brands in 19 states. I think it's about 13 brands in 19 states, plus the District of Columbia. But these are some of our main ones. These are the retail ones. Luminant is that power generation brand, and some of the power plants still have the Dynegy logo outside the building, but they are under the Luminant umbrella. And so one of our main things definitely is that we want to make sure that we provide electricity so to keep the lights on. And many of you may have heard about the storm that hit Texas in 2021 in February. We called it Storm Uri, and it impacted the entire state of Texas. And our company was faced with making sure that we kept our operations going during that time. But unfortunately, there was an issue with getting the natural gas to us. And so we too, were hit very hard at the rate of a $2 billion loss in early 2021. Fortunately, with some initiatives that took place during the course of the year, internal as well as external, we were able to make that back up. So this just gives you an idea. So we got about 5 million retail customers in the United States. So I wanted to bring it home to you all so you all could kind of see where we actually have locations that are in your area. So we have power plants in Connecticut, Maine, and Massachusetts. All of these plants that are listed here are gas fired, so they're not coal fired. I have not heard of any words or anything about any of those being decommissioned. So these are up in operation. And so sometimes we do have, needs at the individual plants. And we'll kind of talk about some of the things that opportunities that we may have right now, and then some things that we may not have. And then I'll kind of talk to you about how our procurement organization, although centralized, we still have buyers that support all these different plants. Okay. So if you want to know what some of our initiatives that we have in place, we have diversity as well as we have the small business. And I'm so honored to be able to present here today and to, share with you all some of the initiatives that we have in place, and then to see, about your capabilities and some of the things that maybe you all can do to actually be a part of the Vistra supply chain. So we, of course, only accept suppliers that are certified as a diverse owned company. And when we say diverse, that would be the ethnic minority, so individuals that are certified through the National Minority Supplier Development Council. But we also accept minority certifications through some of the cities, and I know some of the states may offer certification as well. We will accept those. It has to be a third-party company to make sure that you're vetted and to prove that you're 51% owned, operated, and managed and controlled by that minority owner. Also, we are a member of the Women Business Enterprise National Council, so WBEs. Also, veterans, we are a national member of NAVOBA, that's the National Veteran-Owned Business Association. There's also certification through other veteran organizations, but the one that we are a member of is NAVOBA. For LGBT, we are a member of NGLCC, that's the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. And then also for DOBIes, we are a member of Disability In. Those are the organizations in which we are national partners with. And then we, of course, work with the RPOs, the different councils that fall under the umbrellas of WeBank as well as NMSDC. As I stated, we do require that third-party certification. And some of the things that we have to do is we have to report to our board on an annual basis. We report to our Supply Chain Advisory Council biannually. But every month, on the fourth Thursday of each month, the supply chain leadership, along with the supplier diversity team, we all meet. And so our team is responsible for providing information on things that we've done, but we also want to be in tune and in step with our partners that are in supply chain, because they're the ones that are closest to the business. They're the ones that are going to know what projects are out there, where they're going to need some assistance with some suppliers. And so we want to stay in lockstep with them. I started attending the category managers meetings. They have a monthly meeting. Actually, I'm sorry, it's twice a month. And they talk about the different projects and that sort of thing that they have going on. So I actually attend that. Also, typically on an annual basis in December, I meet with the category managers. Some people call them strategic sourcing managers or sourcing managers. We call ours category managers. I meet with them to find out, hey, in the coming year, what are you seeing or what are you hearing are going to be some of the opportunities that I can introduce you and your business clients to from a diverse supplier standpoint. And so they typically will give me what they foresee, but those are just for those high level, mostly larger programs. But on any given day, I get an email from some of our category managers, our procurement specialists. Hey, Mary, I'm looking for a supplier to do cybersecurity with Active Directory. Do you know of any companies? We're getting ready to start vetting companies. And then what I do is I'll provide them a list of people, and we'll talk a little bit more about what I do in order to provide them that list. And then, of course, we have the small business initiative. We have governmental contracts, and so therefore we have to report to the Small Business Administration. And so we do accept the small disadvantaged business, the women-owned small business, as well as veteran-owned small businesses, and the service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses, as well as federal hub zone. And then for these require the self-certification. And then there's a report that we have to complete by October 31st. And that report is signed by our Vistra CEO. And originally when this deck was, this particular slide was in another deck, and it was signed by Kurt Morgan, who is our current CEO. But I think it was about 2 weeks ago, he announced that he is actually going to be leaving Vistra, and the president of Vistra and CFO, Jim Burke, is going to be taking over as the Vistra CEO. We're extremely excited about that. Jim Burke has been on the retail side. He's been with the company since we had deregulation in Texas around in 2000 and I think it was January 2002. So he's been here almost 17 years. So pretty much everyone knows him. So we're really glad that he's going to be taking the helm of our company. At one point, before he became the president and the CFO, supply chain reported directly into him. So he knows, and he's an advocate for supplier diversity. And that's something that we need. I always tell people, if you do not have that initiative that's coming down from the top down, you're not going to have a successful program. So here's some of these do's and don'ts. And so these are my little tips to you all. I'm sure that Joanne and the staff there at the Greater New England MSDC probably have provided this information to you and said it, but I'm going to reiterate some things because we want you to be successful in getting that business, not only with Vistra, but other companies as well. So one thing to do is you can research. Like I said, if you haven't already done any research on Vistra or any company in which you're trying to do business with, make sure that you go out there and research it. Read their press releases, read any type of filings that they have done. Like you could go out there and type in coal to solar, and then you'd see a whole bunch of stuff out there with regards to what we're doing in Chicago. Make sure you have your capability statement up to date, and make sure that you provide a list of some of your current contracts. And I know in some instances, companies may say that we do not give you permission to share that you're doing business or you're providing business or products or services to us. And that's understandable. But just say, for instance, if you're doing business with AT&T and they have not given you that permission, you could say on there, did XYZ for the largest telecom company, global telecom company. You're not saying their name, and it would be up to us to make that assumption of who you're referring to, but make sure that you do some of the companies that you've worked with and some of the contracts and some of the things that you've actually done. It's not a problem to follow up with a phone call after on a quarterly basis. One of the things that I was telling Joanne before we opened up the webinar is many of the companies that you deal with or you work with, they probably will tell you, hey, go to our supplier diversity portal and input your information. And I've heard pros and cons about it. People say, oh, I just feel like if I submit my information into a portal, it's never going to be seen. They're not going to look at it, blah, blah, blah. It's like a black hole. Well, I always tell people, Vistra does not have a portal. I am that. Well, I'm not going to say they don't have a portal. They don't have an electronic portal. I'm that portal. So I'm the one that you send your capability statement over to. And what I do is when I look at it, and if I know that there's a current opportunity or something that I think is going to come up, then I will hold a 30-minute capability discussion. And it's typically just for myself. I'm not going to be bringing in any of our business clients. I'm not going to be bringing in any of our supply chain individuals yet. I'm just going to be getting that information, that initial information, to find out more about your company, your size, your scalability, and those types of things. And I will typically tell people if there's opportunities or if there's not, so you'll be aware. I don't try and sugarcoat things because I don't want you to waste your time to continue to say, oh, well, I can do this work, and I know that we're in a 3 to 5 year contract locked where we're not going to have an opportunity for 3 to 5 years. You check back in with me maybe after 2.5 years for a 3-year contract, because that's when our teams will start doing that vetting process and determine whether or not they are going to do an RFP with the, for that particular project or whatever they're needing. I kind of already touched on this one about making sure that you have that NMSDC description updated, or maybe I hadn't. I think I maybe talked to Joanne about that earlier, but one of the things that I do whenever I get that email that says, hey, Mary, do you have some people that do XYZ? First of all, I go into my file. So every capability statement that I receive, if what you do is not in the name of your company, so if it's Mary Gano Staffing Services, then I know Mary Gano probably does staffing. I don't need to save any actual additional wording. But if it's not, if it's, Mary Gano Consulting and Mary Gano does HR consulting and benefit consulting, then what I would put, I'd say benefits, HR. So when I do get those requests for suppliers, I can just go in and type a keyword search in my file, and then it would pull up all those capability statements that had those words in there. And that's how I go back and look. But that's the first thing that I do. But guess where I go next? I'm going to that NMSDC Central, and I'm going to go in there and I'm going to type in keywords of what I'm looking for. And if you have the skills and the experience of what I'm looking for, I want to make sure, I will hope that you would come up, you pull up. And the only way you can do that is to make sure that you have a good description of what your services are. Don't have just that 1-liner, 2-liner, which you may have put when you first were seeking certification, where you're like, oh gosh, I got all this paperwork I got to submit. The last thing I want to do is write this long description. Take that time to go back in and update that description. And guess what? Just say, for instance, if you pivoted and you currently you're doing something different than what you originally stated you were doing, go on there and make sure that you add that to that description also. And then, make sure that you let me know. So just say, for instance, if I'm talking to you and you've done business or you're doing work with Entergy or something, let me know you're doing work with Entergy, who your contact is over there, because if we need some work, then I can just call over there and then get a reference and that sort of thing. Okay. If you're providing business or services, I should say this, if you're providing services to any of our power plants where you're actually physically going to be on site, you need to be in ISNet World. And ISNet World is the company that we use that actually houses or is responsible for making sure that all of our suppliers have their insurance information, that the insurance standards that we put in place are met, and that there's any type of accidents or safety issues, they keep track of all that. Every morning around 6 a.m., I receive an email that has a list of suppliers that are Vistra suppliers that their grade has changed. That can be in a positive way or that can be in a negative way. So if you're going to be doing work on site at any of our generation plants, especially, you need to be in ISNet World. Now, as far as our insurance requirements, it just depends. So we do have, I think it's like I should have looked this up, but I believe it's like a $10 million umbrella. Well, that's a lot to carry for some companies. And so if you're going to just be on site, I'm just going to arbitrarily pick something. If you're going to be on site delivering, our coffee, you're our supplier that provides our coffee, then you're not going to probably need all that because you're just going to be in an admin building providing coffee. But if you're one of those suppliers and you're going to have employees are on site at one of the doing some work on the generator or something like that, guess what? You definitely need to be in ISNet world and you need to carry that type of insurance. Okay. Here's some of the don'ts. Yeah, it would be good if you didn't ask us what we need. I mean, and when I see this and although I have this listed on here, sometimes you do have to ask, because unfortunately, sometimes looking at filings and looking at a company's website, it may not give you that full picture. Like if you go to our website, you're not going to know that we're looking for cybersecurity for Active Directory. You just wouldn't know that. You'd only know that by getting to know me or getting to know someone in supply chain diversity. And then also, I tell people, you can call me, you can email me, and in some instances, because I travel quite a bit, it's probably best to shoot me an email. And then I would say, but if I've told you that we're not going to have any type of opportunities for the next 3 years because we're locked into a contract, it wouldn't make sense that every 3 months that you send me an email checking in, unless, like I said, if you're doing something totally different aside from what you were originally doing, there could possibly be an opportunity somewhere else, and so that's fine. One thing that we really don't like to see for suppliers to do is to go around supply chain diversity, because we're here to advocate for you. And so if we get to know you and we get to meet you, we can advocate more so than if you go and you look on LinkedIn and you see you provide ESG services where you're helping companies with their reports. Instead of going to our director of sustainability, you come to us and then we can advocate on your behalf. Okay. And then there are some companies that will claim that they can do actually everything. And what we'd like for you to do is to, pick a sweet spot. There may be areas that you do focus a lot in, but pick that sweet spot, what we're looking for. I'll give you just a quick example. I was meeting with one of our procurement specialists last week, and so she's putting in her strategy for janitorial, which I'll talk a little bit about that as opportunities on the coming slide. But she was saying that one company that came and did a walkthrough and completed the RFP, they really didn't focus so heavily on what we needed. They provided like a generic response, like this will cost this will cost this, but offering costs for things that we were not asking for. So make sure when you're doing that RFP, although I don't have that there, make sure when you're doing that RFP that you're providing prices for specifically what needs to be done. Now, yeah, if you go in to say, for instance, with this, if you were to go in and do a walkthrough through a building, you see that, oh, you know what, this just doesn't seem like that this is the most efficient way to do something, then you can add, hey, we could price that out separately, but I see that there's areas that there could be some efficiencies. And that would be with anything. I just had arbitrarily picked janitorial because I'd had that conversation last week, but that could be in any area. Okay. So for the opportunities, those short-term opportunities, which are really actually long-term opportunities also, is the battery storage. One of the things that we're doing for any battery storage project that we have or any solar project that we have, we definitely bring in an EPC. And that EPC for the Chicago work, the contract hasn't been signed. We kind of know who it's going to be, but until the signatures and everyone agrees that, hey, they're going to do this work, I'm not going to use their name. They will hire people, but then we in turn do the direct. They will hire suppliers, but we in turn also will be doing some tier one working with suppliers as well. So in that solar and that battery storage, like I said, doing work in California, in Illinois, and in Texas at this time. Nothing on in the New England area where we're looking at decommissioning, because those are natural gas power plants. High voltage services. So sometimes we'll have several companies that are diverse and they handle the lower to mid level of voltage, but we need companies all the time. That procurement specialist, he always that category manager, he says, Mary, anytime you have any diverse or small businesses that can handle high voltage, make sure you send them over to me. Landscaping and snow blowing, and then janitorial. And down here at the bottom, you see this little orange thing that says category strategies versus local site suppliers. That's one of the things that the procurement specialist that I met with last week is putting together. She is responsible for the facilities category, and she's making that decision. Does it make sense to have a national company that can service all of our locations, or does it make more sense to have those local companies that can come in? Just say, for instance, maybe and I'm just using an example. Sometimes if you have a national company, a lot of them are going to be outsourcing, or they're going to be subcontracting to a lot of other companies. You have a local company, they may be local on site or right there in the area, and a lot of the people that they have on site are their own employees. And then asset-based logistics. We already have an 3PL. That company is Broussard Logistics. They handle all the logistics for us. However, I give them the names of companies that are asset-based. So if you own trucks and you can get load to one place to another, then I definitely want to make sure that I get your capability statement, because I'll be introducing you over to Vicky at Broussard Logistics. And they're a part of our Tier 2 program as well, where we have our primes to let us know on a quarterly basis what suppliers they're working with from that are diverse and or small. The cybersecurity, like I said, that's a brand new opportunity that was just presented to me last week. And I was surprised because in 2021, that was one of the groups that really cut back on some of the projects and things that they had on their roadmap because of that $2 billion hit that the company took. And so it was very inspiring to see that they are looking at new suppliers to help them. Areas where unfortunately we do not have any opportunities are in that staffing area. We had an on-site managed service provider from, I want to say maybe around 2009 until 2015, we were doing a big SAP implementation, doing a lot of hiring of contractors. And so we have that staffing model in place. We ceased that model. And so we don't have a managed service provider. And then in 2018, when we did the acquisition with Dynergy, and we had so many duplication of suppliers, we did the supplier rationalization. And we went from about 43 suppliers that provided staffing services down to 9. Many of those are diverse. So there's no opportunity in that area. Direct hire, pretty much the same thing. We have an internal team. They will reach out to some of the 9 that we have in place already in the event that there's a niche position that they are having difficulty hiring for. Anything, I typically, those data scientist positions are the ones that really come to mind, you know, first, where they sometimes will have maybe difficulties. So they may reach out to some of the current 9 suppliers that we have. Training, pretty much no opportunity there. But I mean, for these, even though there's no opportunity like for training, you can still send your capability statement. Like I said, I'll keep it. Sometimes people are doing some niche things in training. We're operating in a totally different environment. So we've definitely gone from, you know, everything mostly was in person to things being virtual, and now doing that whole transition back to a hybrid return to work. So who knows, there could be some training or something like that in that area, but no immediate opportunities that I'm aware of right now. MRO, we partner and work with Grainger, and they are our MRO provider. They are also part of our Tier 2 program, where they report on a quarterly basis their spend. And then the list of the suppliers that they work with. So if you are in that MRO space and you have an interest in possibly working with Grainger and be a part of their Tier 2 program, then I could do that introduction also. And then for information technology, we call our IT, we call them technology services. We're a little bit different. And so the only opportunity that I've already talked about is that cybersecurity opportunity. One day I'm going to get this thing straight about, transitioning from slide to slide with my mouse. And so the multi-tier I've talked about, we call it multi-tier. Most companies call it a Tier 2. That's where you have a prime supplier that is providing services or product that you direct contract with, but then their Tier 2 would be companies that they would work with to provide services or products that would come through that Tier 1 to eventually get to Vistra. And so we partner for work at our power plants. We partner with Fluor as well as Day and Zimmerman. And so I have listed here that Fluor is an open shop. And then Dan Zimmerman is a clothes shop. And so that would be for plant maintenance labor. And then for like Brand Energy Solutions, they're too a part of our tier 2 program. Actually, all these companies are a part of our tier 2 program. And so they handle scaffolding, insulation, painting, and abatement support. So those are areas that that I could do an introduction if you have those skills from a tier 2 standpoint. For Accenture, they are our main partner for anything related to software in our technology services team. They, like I said, are a part of our tier 2 program. And then they have a program, I think it's called Contractors Exchange. I may have that incorrect, but it's for suppliers that are working as tier 2 through them. So it could be that you've worked a program for Accenture at another company, you're part of that contractor exchange. And then if you're a part of that, then it's easier for me to do the introduction to our account manager, since you've already been a part of that contractor exchange. For Broussards, I've already told you about them. They are 3PL. If you have asset-based trucks, then our asset-based trucking company, then I'd like to introduce you to them. I think that's, and then this is our team, our mighty team of 4. And so Heather Herndon Wright, which many of you may know her, she's been in supply chain for well over 30 plus years. She's been with Vistra. I think she'll hit her 11th or 12th anniversary coming this August. And then myself, I told you I've been at the company for almost 17 years. And then Luis Jenkins, he is actually a Marine who was in a program called Skill Bridge. And Skill Bridge is a program that allows people that are getting ready to retire from the military to get a job at a corporation and to help them do that transition, because we know that people that serve our country, they've done work and handled more things than in some instances many of us have, but then that transition into corporate is something that's kind of new to them. So he's been with us since October of 2021, and he recently retired from the Marines on March 31st. And so he was handling our supply chain sustainability. And then we have Heather Burge Mason. She is a specialist. So she handles a lot of our analytical data, our information. And then she also keeps us, on track of all these different events that we're supposed to be attending, since things are going back in person, and then all the virtual things. So she's there as well. But I'm that main person that you want to send your capability statement to. Okay. And then now we're ready for Q&A. And I will preface it by saying, if I don't have the answer, I'll take note and get the answer and then send it back to Joanne, and then she'll get it out to the group.
All right. Thank you so much, Mary. That was so informative. So as I mentioned, please put your hands up. So click on that raise hand icon. And then when we see your name pop up, we will prompt you to unmute, and you can ask your question directly. And we found that this way is just a lot more interesting. We can ensure that your questions are being answered. If there's a follow-up question, you don't have to type it in like 5 questions later. So definitely take this opportunity to ask the expert right here.
Oh, Joette, I don't know if I'm the expert.
Okay, so Carl Hill, I am going to ask you to unmute.
Good morning. Thank you for a very informative presentation, Ms. Cano.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here, Carl.
Very well. The question that I had is that, do you have any additional information you could share regarding your cybersecurity opportunity?
Not right now, but I will get some information, Carl. So make sure you write my email address down and shoot me an email to remind me. I will ask this. I respond to people. It may not be the same day. It may not be the next day, but I definitely will respond back to you. But Carl, if you could send that over to me, that question, and then I'll get that additional information. It was just like a one-liner, and I was actually traveling to Boston last week. And so when I got that email, and so now traveling again, and so just haven't had an opportunity to even ask additional information on it. Only thing it said was Cybersecurity Active Directory.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
So I'm not sure if they're needing like an assessment done on what we have in place or what they're actually looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question.
Any other questions? Don't be shy. Okay, Drew Taylor.
Good morning, Drew, or afternoon, Drew, I guess.
If you can unmute, please. Perfect. Go ahead, Drew.
Drew, can you hear us? It looks like now you're back on mute. Then you're taking yourself off of mute. You may want to check. I'm not sure what, if you have multiple monitors going, and sometimes I hear people say that, oh, I got to click this button for this audio.
Okay, let's see. He's showing up over here too. How about this one? If you can take yourself off mute. Okay, so Drew, you're unmuted. Can you hear us? Okay, so Drew, if you can put your question in the Q&A, we'll go back to the old-fashioned way. And I am going to remove your permission to talk, and Eugene Green, I'm going to click on your name now.
Good morning, Eugene. Can you hear us, Eugene? It looks like you're off mute, but we're not hearing you.
Oh, you're muted again. Oh, you're unmuted.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can you hear me?
Yes, barely.
Oh, perfect. I'm
We can hear
sorry.
you.
Mary, Joanne, thank you for presenting today. My name is Eugene Green with EB Green Consulting. Our core competency is project management. I'm just curious, do you look for individuals that provide these type of professional services, anything in the space of move management or any particular IT projects?
Yeah, well, we actually have a project management, a PMO office that sits in the technology services group. And so they pretty much handle all the projects. And in my life, prior to coming into supplier diversity, I spent 7 years on the business side. We had a group called the Performance Excellence Organization, and it was the business project managers that was kind of like that liaison that was able to communicate that technology, somewhat language over to the business teams that were wanting to have these projects done. So very seldom do we bring in any outside individuals to do any project management of our projects. But I would say, just shoot me over your capability statement and I'll just take a look at it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Eugene. Okay, and Mary McCarthy.
Good morning, Mary.
Morning, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my husband is a disabled veteran and he has a aerial photography business in New England. And I didn't know if you had any opportunities for aerial photography. He's got an FCC license. So, over the power plants or anything of that nature.
Yeah, and so I've heard like some different companies that do offer that services, and I'd like for you to go ahead. I know it probably sounds like a repeat that I'm saying this to everyone, but I do want to see that capability statement too, or his capability statement, because does he offer the type of where he can do the aerial photography, but does he have the opportunity to be able to see like if there are issues within the power plant and be able to provide that back, or is he pretty much just doing the aerial photography?
He's doing the aerial, the drone photography.
Okay, yep, send that over to me, please.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome. Not sure if there's any opportunity right now, but you just never know what's coming up.
Okay.
And then I'm going to change my background because I want to do a screenshot if you don't mind. So I probably should have had this up here all along, my Vistra background, but.
Very fancy. So we do have some questions coming in through Q&A. So I
Okay.
will just ask them so you don't have to worry about any issues with microphones.
Okay.
So Drew Taylor is wondering if you could provide more information about your MSP program.
You said our MSD program? What is-
MSP.
Oh, we don't have one. That's,
Okay.
yeah, we used to have one. Yeah, we used to have one from 2009 to 2015. And then we got rid of that because we started doing a lot of the hiring ourselves. Actually, I think this part I did forget to mention is that in addition to us not hiring a lot of contractors after that whole SAP implementation, we started actually hiring contractors as Vistra contractors. So they would come on as a Vistra contractor. So we didn't have the need to have additional and an MSP to handle that for us.
Thank you. All right. Frank Gomes is wondering about the contact centers that Vistra leverages. Are you looking at any contact center upgrades in the area of artificial intelligence?
Not that I have heard of. Like I said, it was very surprising that IT even had an opportunity that they presented to me last week. But when you say the contact centers, are you talking about on the retail side of the business for our call centers?
I am guessing so, yes.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we, of course, have several call centers, some onshore, some offshore. The opportunity that we had for them, it wasn't from a upgrading of those because those are things that we subcontract out. We do have some internal employees that are that handle escalated calls and that sort of thing from a call center standpoint. But the majority of our call center work is done outsourced, and so any upgrade would be actually on the partner's responsibility. So hopefully I answered that question. I hope I gave you what you may have been looking for. If not, type something else back in there.
Right. Or you can just raise your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And we have Jason Corbin, who is wondering if there's an opportunity to onboard as a staffing agency.
No, it's not. There is definitely, unfortunately, there is not an opportunity in that area. And I would say it wouldn't even be in the next 3 years. I really do not see us going back to having what we had before. And the fact that we have 9 companies now that are supplying what we need, and many of those are diverse and certified, that's just an area that I just do not see any opportunity going forward. Now that could change. Who knows? We may go out and acquire so many other companies and need to do some other stuff that could change. But right now, I'd say at least in the next 3 to 5 years, don't see any of that changing.
Okay, so that's it for our questions that came through Q&A. Are there any other attendee questions? If so, please raise your hand. We'll make sure that we answer all questions. And if anything does pop up, Mary's email is in the presentation, so you'll be able to contact her directly. But we want to make sure that, while you are here, if you have any burning questions, please make sure to ask. Oh, okay. Here we go. We have Carl Hill.
Hey, Carl again.
Yes, just another question for you. Are you guys doing anything as it pertains to employee satisfaction or well-being? Or have you taken the step to kind of understand their satisfaction in the careers that they currently are in?
Yeah, we did actually before COVID. I don't think I've seen anything that's come out since COVID. I may not just be remembering, but we did the Nelson, I think it was the Nelson Employee Satisfaction Survey. I think that if there's not anything that's going on currently, that I'm sure that there's going to be a need as we do this whole transition. Everybody's not ready to come back to the office. People have been successful working from home for the last 2.5 years, and many people are not ready or not wanting to come back. And so I don't know, there could be that opportunity, Carl, where we may look at something like that. You all will probably think this woman has done like everything. So in my role before being a senior project manager, I had 16 years, not all of it at Vistra, but in talent acquisition. And so I do understand and know, and although I've been outside of talent acquisition and working very closely with our organizational development and our teams, I do know that that's something that needs to be taken into consideration and looked at very closely, is that job satisfaction. You know, what may have been satisfactory for an employee prior to COVID, they're rethinking some of those things that are giving them that job satisfaction. So that is something that I think that we probably would need to possibly look at. And what I typically do is when I get those type of, you know, questions or those capability statements that, you know, provide that type of service, I typically send them over to our Chief Diversity Officer. We put someone in place in that role in January of 2021, and she's really, really good about looking at when I send her companies over. There was a company that I actually met with, and I don't see him on the call today, although he had told me that he may have jumped already or he may not have been able to attend. But when I talked to him last week, I was telling him, I'm not sure if there's going to be an opportunity, but I said, you know, one area, I told him the area that I thought that possibly it could be, because I hadn't seen it done yet. And so I sent that over to our Chief Diversity Officer. She's like, yes, I want to talk to him. So it could be something that in our minds, they may be thinking, oh yeah, do we want to do it? Oh, I don't know if it's priority. But then you give it to me and then I send it over to them and they're like, yeah, we can at least have a conversation.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Could you repeat your email address again?
Yeah, it's mary.gano, Gano, well, you can see it right there on the screen, at vistracorpaltogether.com. And it's going to be in the deck that Joanne's going to send out to all the participants.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we had another question come in with a follow-up. So I'm wondering if it's possible for you, Frank, can you raise your hand and ask the question just so we can make sure that it's captured properly? Okay, great.
Okay. Hi, my name is Frank Gomes. Hi, Mary.
Hello, Frank.
Great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
My question is to follow on in regard to the contact center. Who's actually the vendor did Vistra outsource their contact center to? I'm just thinking second tier spend here on my side.
Yeah, and we don't have any there. Well, you know what? Let me say, they're not a part of our tier 2 program. That's not to say that they don't supply. Yeah, they're not a part of our tier 2 program, and they actually outsource it to a few companies. I'm trying to go back to my retail days, and oh gosh, I cannot remember the names of the companies. Was Transactal seemed like was one, and who knows? It's been a long time since I worked on that retail side where I was more involved in that. But Transactal is one that rings a bell. Who knows? They could have been acquired by now and changed names or anything like that.
Yeah,
but I know
understandable.
that that's one of the companies that
Okay.
we work with. But yeah, they're not a part of our tier 2 program.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you so much. Bye.
You're welcome, Frank.
Okay, so if that is it for questions, then everyone will get 10 minutes back in their day. So thank you so much, Mary, for your informative presentation. We really appreciate your time today. Oh, we have one more question.
Okay, perfect.
All right, Anna. Can you unmute?
Hello, Anna.
This is actually Jeff Schneider. I got a question regarding the second tier. They have for Fluor in particular, or Brand Energy.
Yeah.
And how do we contact them against their second tier spend?
What you're going to do is you're going to send me your capability statement, and then I'm going to do the introductions virtually. That's how you do it. Yes.
All right, very good.
You know, just because I introduced you to them, they may not have any opportunities at Vistra, but then you've been introduced to our account manager, and then you could possibly have other opportunities within other companies.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any last questions? If not, thank you so much, everyone, for your time today. As I mentioned, this presentation was recorded. It will be on our YouTube page in the following day or two. And I will share the presentation with Mary's contact information. So thank you so much for your time and have a great day.
Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.